Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I am Danielle, aka Stitcherista here on YouTube, and today I decided to do a stitch with me while I continue working on Carolyn Manning Designs Northern Lights. I have not done a stitch with me or a diamond paint with me in a couple weeks, and remember I have off this week from the arbitration, so I thought, why not do a stitch with me? Because I've gotten so much done on this project. I really am impressed with myself. Enjoying a delicious mocha latte. And yeah, I mean, I've had more stitching time than I would have expected, given that Bill was gone a couple days last week. And then this week being off. So let's talk about yesterday. So yesterday I got up and I spent about 4 hours wrapping Christmas gifts. I only have like 3 more gifts to wrap that haven't arrived yet. So that took me so long and just took so much out of me that by the time I took a shower, now when I got done that and I took a shower and I was getting ready, I was planning to do a video. And then Bill called me and said, the wedding we were just at over the weekend, the bride tested positive for COVID. Yep. And so I was just instantly thrown for a loop and just didn't have the mental wherewithal to sit down and do a video after that. So right away, in my mind, I'm thinking, we can't go to my dad's for Thanksgiving because the CDC guidelines, because I talked to Jill and she said, before you make any rash decisions, check the CDC guidelines. So the CDC guidelines for people who are fully vaccinated, I don't need to quarantine, right? Unless I have symptoms, which I feel fine right now. It said, however, fully vaccinated people should get tested 5 to 7 days after their exposure, even if they don't have symptoms, and wear a mask indoors in public for 14 days following exposure or until the test result is negative. So 2 weeks ago, I bought 2 packs of home tests, and it has 2 tests per box. So last night, Bill and I are talking, and we had a bit of tension because I really was on the fence about going to the wedding anyway, because it was about 60 people, so a lot of people, and I blame myself ultimately because I feel like I should have put my foot down and said I'm not going, or I should have worn my mask, which I didn't when I was there. Now, I think the one thing that is in our favor is that we were only in contact with the bride for like 5 seconds. Our table was way in the back at the reception. We didn't dance, so we weren't really around them per se, but they were around the whole room. So I messaged my dad last night and said, I'm sorry, we're not going to be able to come to Thanksgiving, because in good conscience, I could not go over there and risk infecting them as well. And I canceled my massage on Saturday. And I'm supposed to have the retreat next week. So I'm going to be keeping a close eye on myself, because 5 days technically isn't until Friday. I took I took one of the tests this morning and it was negative, but I still realize it's probably too early. So Friday, Bill and I are both going to take a test. So we're going to be home for Thanksgiving. I'm very disappointed in that because I've not seen my dad or his family really for a holiday like that in like 2 years. And so I also let my mom know what was going on. And I'm just praying I don't get it, because I told Bill, I said, unless I'm bedridden, you realize I'm going to have to work through the arbitration with it, because there just isn't anybody else. Like, it would just put the team into such a hardship every single day. So I'm praying Praying I don't get it. So Bill went to the doctor this morning about his blood pressure, and it wasn't dangerously high, but they did put him on medication, and he has to follow up with his doctor in a month. And he was able to get his booster today at the doctor, so I canceled his appointment for Saturday. And I still have my appointment. But yeah, I'm bummed, and now I'm sad that now I have to worry about this, right? About monitoring myself constantly and just hoping I don't get it. And yeah, so I stitched a lot last night. I stitched for a couple hours before dinner. And I watched that movie. I rewatched a movie I had seen before called The Judge with Robert Downey Jr. So good if you haven't seen that. And then when Bill went to bed, I stitched for another couple hours. And what did I watch? Did I watch a movie? What was I watching? I don't remember what I watched last night. Oh, I started watching Gladiator again. I've seen Gladiator a lot, and I really like that movie. It's about 2 hours and 35 minutes, the movie. I didn't finish it, but I got to the part where they are at the Coliseum and they're getting ready to fight. So, such a good movie. So either today or tomorrow, I will definitely watch Charlie Brown Thanksgiving. And I always watch Home for the Holidays with Holly Hunter and Robert Downey Jr. I just love that movie, and it's a perfect Thanksgiving movie because it's about the Thanksgiving holiday. So, yeah, we're going to be taking it easy today and tomorrow and Friday. Not going anywhere, doing anything for the next couple of days, for sure. So, but yeah, my hair. So many have commented about my hair that they really like it. I have to say that it is probably the best cut and color that I've ever had, or it's been the best cut and color I've had in a really long time, because the way that I fix my hair now by curling it, the day I wash it and curl it, it holds like to the next day. Like the next day, all I gotta do is like brush my hair. I don't have to fix it or anything, put some spray in it, done. It really is, I'm really pleased. Like it was well worth it. Okay, so today's story is called The Missing. In the early morning hours of January 15th, 1990, a man named Gert Van Rooyen drove his white pickup truck to a remote road just outside of Pretoria, South Africa. Sitting in the passenger seat was Van Rooyen's lover, a stout, middle-aged woman named Joey Harhoff. Van Rooyen and Harhoff had been a couple for 2 years. Today would mark the end of their relationship. It would also mark the end of their lives. The police were closing in on them. Their arrest for some of the most infamous crimes in the nation's history was imminent. Only Van Rooyen wasn't going to be taken alive. Before the sun came up that morning, he drew a gun and shot his lover in the head. Then he placed the barrel to his temple and pulled the trigger, blowing his own brains out. So, murder-suicide. Okay. So, the story of how Gert Van Rooyen ended up killing himself in the cab of his truck begins in the 1940s. Baki, as he was known in his youth, was a problem child from an early age, an inveterate liar, a habitual thief, a bully, a precocious kid with an abnormally keen interest in sex. Oy, okay. No one was really surprised when he was shipped off to a reform school in his early teens, nor that he emerged unrepentant from that stint of remedial education. As a young adult, he continued his criminal career specializing in car theft. It was only when he started a construction company with his brothers in the mid-60s that Van Rooyen appeared to settle down. He even got married and would father 6 children, good God, over the next decade. That's a lot of kids to bring into this world. 6? But the demons that afflicted Gert Van Rooyen had not been exorcised. He retained an almost insatiable sex drive, and more, his taste inclined toward prepubescent girls. Oh my God, dude. In 1979, Van Rooyen abducted a 10-year-old and a 13-year-old. He drove them to the I can't even pronounce this, a dam near Pretoria, where he ordered them to strip, beating them when they hesitated. He then took his time sexually assaulting the children, holding them overnight, and only releasing them onto the streets of Pretoria the next day. He warned the girls not to say anything, but of course they did. Yes, you would, because your parents would be like, where the hell have you been, right? So Van Rooyen was arrested, tried, and sentenced to 4 years behind bars. He served 3 years. By the time he emerged from prison in 1983, his wife had divorced him. Not shocking there, right? They say that like attracts like, and nowhere does that idiom ring truer than in the case of Gert Van Rooyen and Francina Johanna Joey Harhoff. The pair met in 1988 when Van Rooyen was 49 and Harhoff 47 years old. Harhoff was recently divorced and saw in the bald, paunchy Van Rooyen the man of her dreams. They did have similar appetites. In Harhoff's case, the victim was her own daughter, who she had routinely beaten and emotionally abused during her upbringing. She had also allowed the child to be sexually abused by her father. I fucking can't with that. What? Who does that? The little girl would frequently be seen with bruises on her arms and legs, with clumps of her hair pulled out, with her earlobes torn from being yanked by her mother. Wow. Given this propensity for cruelty towards children, it is easy to see how Harhoff could have been recruited to Gert Van Rooyen's cause. Well, they were a match made in heaven then, truthfully. On August 1st, 1988, 14-year-old Tracy Lee Scott Crossley disappeared from the Cresta shopping mall in Randburg, north of Johannesburg. Tracy Lee had last been seen talking to a middle-aged woman with blonde hair. Despite an extensive search, no trace was found of the teenager. Nearly 5 months later and 300 miles away, 12-year-old Fiona Harvey disappeared from a street. A white Ford Bantam pickup had been spotted cruising the streets of the area round about the time that the little girl vanished. One witness reported that there was a flyer for a construction company taped to the back window of the vehicle. He thought that it might have said Van Rooyen Construction. This lead would prove vital later in the case. However, it was not followed up at this time. And why? Why wouldn't police follow up on that, right? And so that would have dire consequences for another little girl. On June 7th, 1989, 12-year-old Joan Horn vanished from a suburban street in Pretoria. Days later, 16-year-old Janet Delport was lured from a shopping mall in Durban by a blonde woman. The teenager was found hours later wandering the streets in a disoriented state with no recollection of what had happened to her. With the story of the disappearances now making headlines across the country, there was a double abduction on September 22, 1989. 11-year-old Odette Boucher and 12-year-old Anne-Marie Wapenaar were snatched from the streets of Kempton Park, another satellite town close to Johannesburg. 1 week later, on September 29, 1989, Anne-Marie's mother received a letter from her daughter saying that she and Odette had run away to Durban with some boys. A similar letter, this one from Odette, was delivered a week later. Both of the girls' mothers agreed that the letters were in their daughter's handwriting. However, the diction was unusual, suggesting that the letters had been written under duress. And that opened up a terrifying new possibility for the traumatized families. Had their daughters been abducted by sex traffickers? Were they even now being abused, raped, molested? I can't even imagine. The answers to those questions had still not been uncovered when there was another abduction. Good night. They just aren't stopping. This one providing a direct link to Gert Van Rooyen. On November 3rd, 1989, 13-year-old Yolanda Wessels vanished from her home in Pretoria. Yolanda was the niece of Joey Harhoff. Fantastic. Now you're resorting to kidnapping family members. 7 young girls had been snatched from busy city streets in just over a year. 6 of those girls were still missing, and yet, despite their best efforts, the police had nothing to go on, no clue as to who was responsible. It seemed almost inevitable that the papers would soon be reporting another abduction, another child taken, more lives destroyed. It happened on January 11th, 1990. The victim this time was 16-year-old Joan Boyzen, a grade 11 student from Pretoria. Joan had missed her usual school bus that morning and was sitting at a stop in Church Street, central Pretoria, waiting for the next bus to arrive. She was fretting about being late when a blonde woman approached and struck up a conversation with her. Joan then mentioned that she was late for school and the woman offered her a ride. Oh boy. No, don't get in the car with a fucking stranger. Are you kidding? This left the teenager with a dilemma. Her parents had always warned her to be wary of strangers and had repeated that warning ever more stridently in the wake of the recent abductions. But this woman was friendly and seemed harmless. Besides, the ride would mean that she would get to school in time for her first class. So after a moment of reflection, Joan accepted. She suspected nothing untoward, not even when her benefactor said that she needed to pick something up from her house along the way. The house turned out to be a modest bungalow in the Pretoria suburb of Capitol Park. At the woman's suggestion, Joan went inside with her. Jesus Christ, what? She accepted the soda that was offered and then followed the woman as she insisted on giving her a tour of the property. It was just as they passed the main bedroom that Gert Van Rooyen emerged from cover. Without uttering a word, he struck out at Joan, hitting her in the face, spilling her to the floor. And when she looked up again, he was standing over her holding a gun, and he said, "Do as I say or I'll shoot you." Okay. Joan was then forced into the bedroom where Van Rooyen held the gun on her until Harhoff returned, holding a handful of pills. These they ordered Joan to swallow, which she did. She was then forced at gunpoint into a closet, which was latched from the outside, and already she could feel herself becoming woozy. But Van Rooyen and Harhoff had chosen the wrong victim this time. Her slight stature had perhaps fooled them into thinking that she was younger than her 16 years. Rather than lie down and let the pills take their effect, rather than submit to whatever outrages they had planned for her, Joan started rummaging through the closet looking for something that might aid her escape. What she found was a cooler box with a plastic lid. This she forced into the gap between the closet doors, and wiggling it upward, she managed to release the latch. Joan was out, but by no means in the clear. Her captors might still be around, and if they caught her, she was going to be in trouble, right? Absolutely. She had seen the glint in the man's eye as he had looked at her. The impression she gained was of pure evil. This was not a man who would hesitate in carrying out his threats. Shooting her would mean no more to him than squishing a bug. And so Joan tread carefully, tiptoed to the window, and peered out. She could see the woman standing in the garden, but of the man there was no sign. Aware that she might be recaptured at any time, she walked to the phone on the bedside table, picked it up, and dialed her cousin's number. And she said, "Just listen and don't say anything." And she told the tale of her abduction and imprisonment. She then gave the address of the house before hanging up. The drugs were taking effect, making her sway on her feet. Leaning heavily against the wall, she stumbled towards the front door and opened it. The path to the garden gate was clear. Summoning the last of her reserves, she ran towards it, sprinting past a startled Joey Harhoff and out into the street. Then there she flagged down a motorist and clambered into his car and said, "Take me to the nearest police station." By the time they arrived, the pills had kicked in. Joan was fast asleep. You know, I know these people were kids, but if you had any wherewithal, like, I would be trying to make myself throw up to get whatever pills I could out of my system, right? But yeah, I guess you're just so harried and all of that, right? So as it turned out, the task team investigating the missing girls had already identified Gert Van Rooyen as a potential suspect. His vehicle with the telltale advertisement for his construction business had been flagged near the site of Fiona Harvey's abduction. Now, with evidence directly linking Van Rooyen with attempted kidnapping, they placed his house under surveillance. But Van Rooyen and Harhoff had gone on the lam, driving north of the country where Harhoff's daughter lived, the same daughter who she had abused as a child. Van Rooyen and Harhoff returned to Pretoria on January 14, 1990, after Harhoff's daughter urged her to give herself up. In the early hours of January 15th, Van Rooyen cruised past his house in Capitol Park, probably to see whether the cops were keeping an eye on the property. Spotting a suspicious vehicle, he raced away, somehow managing to evade the unmarked police car that gave chase. His next stop was on the quiet stretch of road outside Pretoria, where he shot his lover before taking his own life. So, in the aftermath of that murder-suicide, the police dispatched crime scene teams to search Van Rooyen's residence, vehicles, and business premises. The property at 227 Malherbe Street, Capitol Park, was demolished brick by brick as investigators searched for forensic evidence that would link Van Rooyen to the missing girls. They found no hair, no blood, no tissue samples that would make their case, but that is not to say that they came away empty-handed. Several pieces of incriminating evidence were found, including Anne-Marie Wapnar's house keys and a clasp pin belonging to Odette Boucher. A handwritten note containing Odette's home address and phone number was found hidden under a carpet in Van Rooyen's garage. There was also stationery and envelopes identical to those the girls' letters were written on. Additionally, there was the infamous blonde wig donned by Joey Harhoff as she lured innocent little girls for her depraved lover. None of the girls have ever been found. They remain among the missing. That is probably the most horrible piece of this story, is that none of these girls have ever been found. So there's no justice. There's no, closure for the families. That's awful. So they probably have no idea really how many girls they did this to. Have you ever heard of that case? I've never heard of that case. So I hope you guys all have a fantastic Thanksgiving. I am not going to record tomorrow a video. I will come back on Friday and record again. So have a happy Thanksgiving if you celebrate it, and I hope you're having a great Wednesday. As always, if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments section below, and I will answer them to the best of my ability. Thank you so much for watching and subscribing, and I will see you in my next video. Bye, guys.